Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kersner.
Hello and welcome to episode 95 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now, and I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this amazing present moment. The title and topic of today's podcast is Being the Cycle Breaker in the Present Moment. This is an issue and a topic that I think of often. It's a title that I proclaim to have, that I've earned. It's a title that I talk about with patience, being the cycle breaker. And it's something that I wanted to share with you, the listeners, so you can understand what it means to be a cycle breaker, what cycles have been perpetuated, and why they need to end. And I did a podcast on patterns and understanding your patterns in the present moment. And I feel like the next step is to understand what it means to be a cycle breaker, because it's an accomplishment and an achievement that is worthwhile. It's a worthy endeavor to strive for, to end the cycles that have been passed down from generation to generation, unconsciously, and maybe sometimes consciously, reenacting trauma, creating trauma, because for a variety of reasons. And they all hover around the ego. And the truth is that traumatized people traumatize other people, and that often happens through cycles, through lineages. And it gets perpetuated from one person to another. It doesn't necessarily have to happen interfamily. It could happen with friends. It can happen at work. But these cycles keep on going. They keep on repeating themselves. And really what it takes is being present to be able to see what's actually been going on, what you're experiencing, why you're experiencing it, and what you want to do about it. It takes a lot of courage to become a cycle breaker. It is a title that is earned through a tremendous amount of adversity, but perseverance with the understanding that you have chosen to end these patterns, these behaviors, that you do not wish to pass them on to anyone else for the sole reason that you didn't like it when it was done to you. So why would you do it to someone else? And really, the only way to understand the cycle itself is to be present and to heal yourself, to work through the trauma, to be able to zoom out enough, to spend enough time with yourself, to heal yourself in mind, body, and spirit. And that is not an easy process at all. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a variety of methodologies to allow the trauma to come to the surface and to heal it and to end it. When I talk to patients about cycles and the potential to be cycle breakers or to become a cycle breaker, it's a very interesting conversation that I have, but oftentimes I will share with them my cycles, the cycles that I endured, and how I became a cycle breaker, because I feel like there's a lot of value in sharing experiences. It makes it very personal and personable, and also inspirational to know that the things that we've gone through that have been extremely difficult and challenging, we can put to an end. We don't have to unconsciously continue these. And again, I'm not saying that this is an easy thing to do. That's why a title like Being the Cycle Breaker is a serious and significant accomplishment, and certainly one that is worth striving for. And there are so many different cycles that have been perpetuated through your lineage, through your family line. And it started somewhere, usually far down the line, and it just continued, and sometimes it was amplified unconsciously at times, and like I said, also consciously, but what was behind it all was the ego, which was perpetuating it, which was supporting the idea that it should be done to others like it was done to you. And it's certainly not a healthy way of treating people. It wasn't a healthy way for you to be treated. It was traumatic, and it was probably unnecessary. But the person or the people who perpetuated that cycle unto you, we can't place blame per se because it doesn't make it feel any better. We have to hold them accountable. You don't necessarily need to forgive them, because in a past podcast I talked about forgiveness. And in my humble opinion, for someone to truly achieve forgiveness is a multi-stage process that is usually unattainable. The other person will not really desire to go through all those steps, and more often than not will absolve themselves of whatever they did to you. So forgiveness is the gift that you give yourself. And also what I've experienced is that when I try to forgive someone who has traumatized me, I end up re-traumatizing myself. So the process for me is dropping the cord between me and the person who perpetuated the trauma. So for me to end the cycle, it's not that I need to figure out a way to forgive those who have created the trauma or perpetuated the cycle onto me. It is a matter of seeing what the cycle was and is, healing it within you with deep introspection, with being extremely honest with myself, for being conscious and present and aware of my behaviors at all times, so that I'm not unconsciously perpetuating a cycle or a pattern onto anyone else. This is not an easy process, and it requires a lot of determination. It requires consistency, and it requires you to be the observer of your behavior. It requires you to be the observer of your words and your thoughts, so that you don't unconsciously do to someone else what was done to you. Now, again, this process can be lengthy, but it is a worthwhile process. It is a tremendous accomplishment. It is a wonderful title to be considered a cycle breaker. And it's not for someone else to acknowledge that you are a cycle breaker. This is a personal accomplishment. It is a personal endeavor. It is something that only you will know, because only you incurred the cycle, the patterns, and the trauma that was done to you, whether it was during your childhood or adolescence or even being an adult. It doesn't matter when it happened. It just matters that it did happen, and that you're recognizing that there was a cycle that was being repeated, and it was being done to you and ultimately for you, so that you could be courageous enough to end that cycle. But the way to do this is to first make sure that you're being present and you have clarity, so you understand what that cycle is and was, and then subsequently what you can do about it to end that cycle, so that you don't pass it on to anyone else or anything else. Again, I want to repeat this. This is not easy. It is not easy at all, and it's not supposed to be easy, because everyone or everything that was before you wasn't strong enough or didn't make the decision to end the cycles that were done to them. So they unconsciously or possibly consciously, it's hard for me to tell you which one it is, but they chose, because everything's a choice, so they chose to reenact those cycles and passed it on to you. Now you have the opportunity to stop it. You have the opportunity to break it. You have the opportunity to show the universe, God, whatever, whoever, that you're strong enough to end it. And I can't think of a better opportunity to prove to yourself who you are and how strong you are than to end the cycles of trauma, to end the negative behavior that has been done to you, that you've witnessed, that you've experienced, and to achieve a title that not many are willing to obtain because of how much endurance it takes to get to that point. This is a topic that I think about often for many reasons, because of the traumas that I've experienced, but also because of the trauma that I've witnessed, the patients that I've worked with, what they've experienced, and to be able to verbalize the opportunity for them, as well as myself, to achieve a title like Cycle Breaker and what that really means. It means everything to me. It is my responsibility, and solely my responsibility, to not repeat the cycles that were done, that caused harm to me, that caused trauma to me. And again, I'm not going to be using forgiveness for anyone else. I'm going to be using presence. And I'm going to be using a variety of different tools to allow the trauma, to allow those memories, to allow those emotions to come to the surface in the present moment, so I can make sense of them and I can heal them once and for all. Again, it requires a tremendous amount of courage and bravery. And if you choose to walk this path, I commend you and I respect you and I salute you, because I understand what it takes to achieve the title of Cycle Breaker. I have earned it, and I've watched others earn it. And again, if this is a path that you decide to walk, I empathize with you and for you, because I understand what it requires, but I also understand what it means. And to me, it means everything. I hope this topic and this podcast is helpful. Talking about what a cycle breaker is, talking about what it takes to achieve such a title. It's not something that's discussed often at all. It hasn't been something that's been discussed to me, but there's certainly something that I discuss often with my patients. In many different ways, I modulate my message based on where they're at and what they're capable of understanding. But this is certainly a worthy endeavor for everyone listening, everyone that's existing in the third dimension, to understand what it means to be a cycle breaker and to work your way to achieving the title, the accomplishment, the honor of being a cycle breaker. I want to thank everyone, as always, for sharing these precious present seconds with me. And as always, I wish you nothing but peace.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.